Well, since the elections here in Nigeria were postponed from February 14 and 28th to March 28th and April 11, 2015, the two dominant political parties here, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and the All Progressives Congress, APC, have not let up on politicking and campaigning. Harsh words have been spoken, and there have been accusations and counter-accusations by both parties to and about each other. Yet many say that the parties need to focus on the issues as prioritized by most Nigerians. What then are these issues? Well, hello and welcome. This is 60 Minutes with me, Angela Ajitumobi. Thank you for joining me on the program today. Now, my host today is a member of Nigeria's House of Representatives. He's been educated across 3 continents, in Nigeria, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America. He's a lawyer, first elected in 2003 to the House of Reps. He represents Surulere 1 Federal Constituency of Lagos State. Currently, he is the minority leader of the House and a member of the All Progressives Congress. So join me after the break as I count down 60 minutes with Femi Gbajabiamila, the minority leader of Nigeria's House of Representatives. Welcome back. Welcome, Mr. Gbajabiamila. Thank you very much for coming on the program again.
Thank you.
The irony of the message of the All Progressives Congress, for a lot of people, you guys say you want change at the federal level for Nigerians, but are you going to deny Lagosians the opportunity to also have change here in Lagos? After all, both parties have been ruling, the PDP in the federal level and you in Lagos, since 1999.
Well, perhaps that argument speaks to a misunderstanding of the concept of change.
Right.
The change is a change in the system, not change for the sake of change because of a length of time. No. There's a saying that if it doesn't break, you don't fix it. You and I both know that Lagos, for instance, is acclaimed, and the governor, Fashola, is acclaimed not just statewide, not just nationwide, but even internationally, to perhaps be the best governor Nigeria has. And he's done quite a lot. Why would you want to change the system that's working? And on the converse, we all know that Nigeria as a whole isn't working. That the PDP government, having been there for 16 years, has gone from worse to worse, has taken the country to nowhere. I mean, whatever area, whatever aspect of national life you want to talk about, whether it's security, whether it's corruption, whether it's social amenities, whether it's education, whether it's health, everything paints a very sad picture. And that's why Nigerians are clamoring for a change. So the idea of change is not in the longevity or how long a party has been in power, not so much.
Yes.
But in the system itself and whether it's working or it's not working.
Yes.
Where it's working, let's leave well alone. Where it's not working, it behoves the country that, we change that system. And there's a saying that the country gets people get the government it deserves.
They deserve.
Yes.
And some people would argue with you about the fact that you state about Lagos working. They say Lagos would have worked even better if the APC wasn't under the stranglehold of one man. I mean, I spoke with Chief Body George, and he told me about a 5 billion naira sum that goes to the tax collectors every month in Lagos State. And everyone says, can you imagine what that 5 billion commission would do in addition to what Fashola has done in Lagos, if we both agree that Fashola has done well, wouldn't he have done better with 5 billion every month for the last 8 years?
Well, let's put it this way. First of all, that's partisan talk. I don't know that Lagos is under the stranglehold of any one person. I know there's a very towering, influential figure in Lagos, and you see that everywhere in the world. You can't do anything about that when it comes to politics. Instead, you should give credit to somebody who's able to build a formidable opposition. Where we are today in Nigerian politics, because of this same person that people say has a stranglehold on Lagos. Otherwise, we'll be in a one-party state. For me, that's political talk. And if you look at even the most advanced democracies, at the time the Bushes had a stranglehold, the Kennedys had a stranglehold in America, as we put it. The question is this stranglehold for good? Assuming that there is a stranglehold. Yes. If not for him, the inept PDP government would have taken over the state and the southwest region a long time ago. And look at what he's been able to do even today. Now, the person that has a stranglehold was the same person that produced the Fashola. If nothing else, you have to give him the credit that he's able to produce people who are able to pilot the affairs of whether it's the state, whether it's wherever they find themselves. He's able to identify credible figures. But I've always believed that if there's any evidence, there are lots of mud being thrown left, right, and center, and hoping that something will at least stick. Yes. That's the game. Just throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at this person, and something will stick. But nothing is stuck so far. And if there's anything that you have on someone, then it means that it's part of the ineptness of this government. And when I saw the documentary, which is probably
where I'm coming from.
But yes, in all of these things, where is the government? Where is the FCC? Where is the police? Where are the prosecuting agencies?
And that's the thing.
Where is the
people ascribe a larger-than-life attitude to this man. They say he can influence everything, even if you have all these evidence.
Okay, so if he can influence in the face of evidence that we're talking about, and he can influence it, then what does that tell you? So this is, to me, this is just you know. Talk. Yes. And when you talk about 5 billion commission, I don't know what the commission is that goes to any consultancy. I don't have any evidence of that. Again, this is all talk. Yes. Nobody has come out with anything. But assuming there's a commission, there must be commission for whoever is collecting taxes. It's regulated. It's a normal practice. You don't collect taxes for free. So I wouldn't be surprised if the taxes being collected by whatever the consultancy is even lower than what they should be collected. Whether it's legal profession, whether it's estate management, whether it's whatever, you work based on commission. It's the way it's done all over the world. When the person you're talking about was in government, the revenue for Lagos State, I believe, was 600, 700, 800,000 naira. IGR, something ridiculous. Now, this same agency that was brought in raised the profile, the revenue profile of a state that was earning 700,000 to 12 billion, and then 15 billion, and then 17 billion a month. If not for that, the state would not have been able to survive what the Obasanjo and the PDGP regime did by cutting off and starving, in spite of a Supreme Court judgment, the funds of the state. You and I would have, the local government wouldn't be able to survive. Your cameraman wouldn't have been able to survive, if not for the ingenuity of this man. And yet people turn around and say, there's 5 billion commission somewhere.
Well, some people say, you know, this agency has been collecting these sums. They've risen from 700,000 to 17 billion now. Why do we then have the tax offices? Why do we have civil servants working in the Lagos State Inland Revenue Service? What are they doing if we're still hiring tax consultants at these exorbitant?
They are collecting taxes, but you need more hands on deck. The Lagos has a population of about almost 20 million people. Yes. We know what the civil service is like, and consultants are used worldwide, is my point. It's almost like privatization. Even that concept of privatization, you have it in Nigeria, and it's more effective. That's what's firming out your collection of your taxes also is.
And then the race in Lagos, you know, and the word on the street, you know, yes, a lot of people agree now that Akinwumi Ambode obviously has great experience coming from within the system, at least much more than the People Democratic Party's Jimmy Agbaje. But again, the albatross that people think Ambode carries, especially in view of those devastating accusations in the recent documentary shown about one of the leaders of the APC. Don't you think that these accusations, even though they've never been proven, will they not have an effect on the race that Ambode is running? And with this 6-week postponement, people have had time to sit back and stew and think about the stories brought up by that documentary.
Well, here's what, let me first of all address the issue of the documentary. As far as I'm concerned, you're throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, just to rattle the cage. But it's not working. For all these accusations, which are damning, for real,
Yes.
why has the principal figure not been arrested and sued to court? What does that tell you about your government? Now, have they just found out these things in the last couple of weeks that they're not true, mind you, but I'm even going on the assumption that they're true. Don't forget that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, after they looked left, right, searched everywhere, all the government could come up with was a code of conduct charge that he had, what, 3 foreign accounts with a total of, I remember at that point in time, maybe about 3,000–4,000 pounds in all 3 accounts that belonged to his wife and his wife, and all they came up with, it was 3,000 or 4,000 pounds that aggregate that was in those accounts.
Yes.
Now, that was all they could come up with, and they docked him for that. Now, if you had all of this, they were more damning. Why didn't you bring those up? Why? So they wanted to try him for something, but all this. So it wasn't a question of not wanting to try him. They wanted to try him for something, but all they could come up with was that.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, there was nothing there.
Yes.
There was no there, like they say. To your
what effect
question about
have.
what effect it would have. Now, here's my take on all of this. PDP has gotten so desperate. PDP has gotten so pedestrian. First of all, Asiwaju is not running for office. But so we are a little bit more mature in our politics. We speak directly to the issue and to the candidates. Now, it could be easily, APC could do a documentary on Jonathan. Easily, we could do a documentary on Bode George.
We've been waiting. People are waiting to see your response.
And you know what that will contain. But Bode George is not running for office. Jimmy Agbaje is. That's how we should direct our politics and the issues of today. I personally believe it's, for me, what PDP is doing, it's like quicksand. The harder you try, the deeper you fall. That's what's happening to them. They're groping for everything. And they're trying hard to get out of that quicksand, but they're falling deeper. I don't believe Nigerian politics, like America and Europe and some more advanced democracies where you have what they call undecided voters or swing voters.
Yes.
I don't believe that. I believe that even as of the time the elections were postponed in February, I believe every single person in Nigeria, or at least a good majority, 90% of the people in Nigeria who were going to vote,
Yes.
had made up their mind where they're voting. I think there'll be little, even for APC to do today,
Yes.
unless something drastic happens, that will convert Jonathan's people, as little as they are, PDP, to the APC fold and say, we're going to vote for APC.
Yes.
And I don't think
PDP
will be able to convert people who are already made up their minds
Yes.
to vote for APC to come their way.
You don't think the PDP has made inroads in the last? Don't forget, as of February 7th, when that postponement happened, everyone, a lot of international newspapers, New York Post, and all of them, they were all categorical in saying that it looked like a change was imminent. You don't think the APC has lost some momentum there?
First of all, I don't think so. But you know what, for the sake of argument, let me even give it to the PDP. Just only for the sake of argument that, okay, assuming we've lost some momentum, but that momentum will be negligible. It will not change. You see, the polling at that time, and I don't want to sound confident or anything, the polling at that time was, it was by a wide margin. The difference was not, it was not close for me. The polls, I had said, even the PDP polls, it was by a wide margin. And so even if you've lost anything, it's still negligible.
Yes.
It won't change the result. But I don't even think that we've lost anything. The more they tried, the more Nigerians became irritated. The postponement alone, in and of itself, boosted the image and the profile of APC. The postponement in itself.
How could that happen? I mean, we've seen since the postponement, it looked to me and many other people like more people are collecting their permanent voter cards, PVCs, within this postponement period than actually before the
my point is that the fact that they did what they did, postponed the election, the fact I'm not talking about the period. The fact that they postponed the election angered a lot of Nigerians, and that doesn't help you as a party. Whether people collected more cards, which I acknowledge, or not, that's not the issue. The issue, the people saw beyond what they were claiming. It was a security issue they were claiming. Yes, I agree. I mean, it's worked for the benefit of a lot more Nigerians because they've been able to collect their cards. But people are not thinking about that. People are thinking that these guys are so desperate, they postponed an election on the pretext that the issue of security. Don't forget that the other things that they've come up with are inconsequential things. Buhari is dead. Buhari is in the sick bed. Buhari has no certificate. But are those the issues? And without any concrete evidence. In fact, they go around forging papers, you know, from teaching hospitals. Yeah. You know, so those issues, Nigerians are very, very much aware today of what is going on. And they're having a big laugh. So I would even advise PDP to re-strategize and speak to the issues. Let's talk about what's going on in Nigeria, not things that are at best tangential.
Join us again after the break.
You know, Angela, that's a very difficult question.
It is difficult to respond to that question.
Angela, that's a great question.
Great question, Angela. Angela, that is a very great question. That's a great question, Angela.
Okay, that's a great question.
Yeah, very good question.
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
That's an interesting question.
This is an interesting question you pose.
60 Minutes with Angela. Gain answers to every question you always wanted to ask.
Who knows Abi better thing? Abi who know like better thing? All these fine things where they see so. Now money government they take do now. Abi, I saying it's like, you know, I mean, excuse me, I dey pay my tax. I dey do it, I dey pay my tax. Say you don't pay your own tax. Have you pay your tax?
Pay your tax. It's your civic responsibility. It's your duty. It's the law.
Welcome back. If you've just joined us, it's 60 Minutes with me, Angela Ajitumobi. On my hot seat today, the minority leader of Nigeria's House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila. Now, you were talking about the pretext, you know, upon which the postponement was made. I'm thinking of Section 135 because that is the section that allows the president to call for extension by 6 months of his tenure if we are at war and any territory in Nigeria is involved physically in that war. And so a lot of lawyers are looking at the reason for the postponement. Perhaps if the reason was PVC distribution, it wouldn't be worrisome. But the reason for that postponement was security, and the security agencies are alleging that they would be involved in fighting with Boko Haram and therefore could not guarantee security for Nigerians who would be voting. Doesn't that lay a foundation for a tenure extension if it happens?
Well, that would be a misread of the Constitution and Section 135. A careful read of that section, very careful, will tell you, number one, we're not at a war.
How could you say we're not?
Hold on a second.
We've got Chadians with us fighting. We've got other countries.
Yes, there's a difference between suppressing insurrection in a part of the country than a country being at war. If you read that section very carefully, 135, it says we're the whole of Nigeria, not a part. It has to be the whole territory of Nigeria that is at war, including Lagos. So it's right there.
Yes, it says in which the territory of Nigeria is physically involved.
The territory of Nigeria, not a part of Nigeria.
So losing 30 local government areas in the northeast to Boko Haram, doesn't that qualify as us being at war?
No. Like I said, the question, the language is very clear. In which the territory of Nigeria is at war. If you look at the territory of Nigeria, even the map of Nigeria, even in the Constitution, at the back of the Constitution, it tells you what the territory of Nigeria is. You cannot, because a part of Nigeria, if you say 30 local governments, for instance, have 707, and you're not going to do an election. And again, there are other countries that have done elections under the circumstances. The intention behind it and the language behind it was even expressed is that Nigeria must be at war. And you cannot be at war with yourself. War talks about external aggression, and it's limited to a few local governments. So that section does not apply in this case.
Yes.
I mean, they don't know that, but I know that. And he would also require a resolution of both houses of the National Assembly to be able to do that.
And people are worried.
He's not going to get that.
You think so?
No, he's not going to get that.
Senator Ojodu said to me that over 80% of senators and members of the House of Representatives are not coming back to the House. And that means two things to me. If you didn't get a ticket, for instance, at your last primary,
yeah.
if that scenario happened, you would be gifted an extra 6 months added to your tenure. Who wouldn't want that?
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. Survival is the first whatever for human beings, self-preservation. I totally agree with that. But in that self-preservation, there's a flip side to it. Okay, and we went through this during the third term.
Yes.
You know, and I've made it clear, if this ever comes to the floor of the House, it's not going to be a yeah or nay vote. Everybody's going to stand up like we did during the tenure elongation issue. Yes. Everybody's going to stand up and look in front of the camera and vote one way or the other for on this. Today in Nigeria, the people of Nigeria want an election. The people of Nigeria have taken their sovereignty into their hands, which is what the Constitution says. It will be difficult for any member of the House or Senate to stand up and not hide under any voice vote, but to stand up, face his constituents, and ask for
a 6-month
a 6-month extension. Look, when we had the third term, and I'm not advocating that, I think it's wrong, but that's the passion that people were against third term, and even more so now. People who attempted to vote for third term for the president then, they knew what happened to them back home. They knew what happened to them, their families, their property. Nobody's going to want that for a 6-month extension.
But are you guys aware, is the APC aware that this is a possible scenario that the Section 135 throws up?
It's a possible scenario, but I mean, there are many scenarios. I mean, the scenarios abound. But whether it's a viable scenario is another question. Again, legally, Nigeria is not at war based on the language of the Constitution. And two, how practical will it be for him to get the resolution of the House? Of course, there are carrots that are going to be thrown. Hey, they're probably going to try and spread money around, which is unfortunate. And people are going to obviously think, oh, I can stay in the House for another 6 months, which is very unfortunate. But then they're going to look at the flip side of it. That what do I gain by staying in the House for 6 months if my life is in danger?
My family can't stay. All right, so let's move to the case of the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission and, you know, the APC, your party, raising an alarm about him being sacked before the elections. So, because you're a lawyer, I want to ask you, is Jegai a public officer for the purposes of our Constitution, 5th Schedule Part 2? If he is, what are the circumstances under which he can be removed from office?
Well, the issue of Jegai, I made it long ago when they first threw that, tried to fly that kite.
Yes.
I made it abundantly clear. And I did a little piece on that. Jegai is not a civil servant. However you want to look at it, he's a public servant. And there's a subtlety. I'll tell you what the difference is. But first of all, for the purposes of this argument, the difference is that the civil servant is guided by the civil service rules. I am a public servant because I work for the people, but I am not a civil servant. I am not guided by the civil service rules. I'm a creation of the Constitution. Jegai is a creation of the Constitution. A civil servant is a totally different category. Jegai is a creation of the Constitution by virtue of section, I believe, 153. 153. The only way, under whatever guise, the only way he can be removed, I think you find that in 157 or thereabouts, is by 2/3 majority of the Senate. And what people don't even understand is this. Again, you know, one has to read the Constitution very clearly before you take a position.
Let me just read that for the sake of those listening at home so that they can follow the argument. Well, subject to the provisions of subsection 3, a person holding any of the offices to which this section applies, and that applies to the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, may only be removed from that office by the President acting on an address supported by 2/3 majority of the Senate, praying that he be so removed for inability to discharge the functions of the office, whether arising from infirmity of mind or body or any other cause or for misconduct.
Well, that's where I was going with that a careful read of that provision. For me, you might want to read it again. My interpretation is that it can only, first of all, it can only be removed by 2/3 majority of the Senate, of course, with the approval of the president. But for me, the interesting part of it is that it's not even the president that can initiate that removal. That removal is initiated by the Senate, 2/3 of the Senate, and then the president can approve it. If you read that language, it says, yes, acting on an address supported by 2/3. So they bring it to him. They debate it, and 2/3 approve it.
And say, Mr. President, this is what we think.
Yeah. And then he has the right to approve or not approve. But it's not him that initiates it. That's my own interpretation of that. And there's a reason for that. Where there's a provision in the Constitution, you also have to look to what was the reason,
yes, the intention of the
drafters.
Yes.
Now, the intention is also to protect that independence of the chairman of INEC.
Yes.
It's an independent body. If the president could just get up and say, you're fired, it's not independent. Because the chairman will always dance to the president's tune because he doesn't want to be fired. The 2/3 initiation of his removal, for very strong reasons,
yes,
it protects his integrity, or rather his independence. And then people have argued, when I did that, people argued, oh, but it happened to Iwu. And I said to them that, first of all, there was a debate on the floor of the Senate before Iwu was removed. It wasn't just go and leave. That's number one. Two, assuming that there was no debate or this was the same thing that was done, does that mean that if something was done illegally, we should perpetuate that illegality till forever because it's been done before? No. If a mistake was done before, then you correct it. For me, the issue of a Jega being a civil servant, they say, and then they argue that, oh, he did it to Sanusi.
Yes.
Again, it's not. First of all, Sanusi is not a creation of this Constitution. You will not see Sanusi's position in here, in the Constitution or office. Sanusi is a creation of a statute, the CBN Act. So there's a difference. Yeah. Sanusi is not, I don't even think he's a civil servant, but he's even closer to being a civil servant than Jega. If Sanusi was removed illegally, should we now perpetuate that illegality?
Can Jega be asked to go on this thing they call terminal leave?
Those are civil service rules or regulations. It's got nothing to do, there's no terminal leave here in the Constitution. You don't read what is not in the Constitution into the Constitution. The language of the Constitution is very express and very clear. Yes. The Constitution says in 157, which you just read out, how he can be removed. Terminal leave, in whatever language, however you dress it, is removal. What you cannot achieve, legally, you cannot, achieve through the back door. It's not going to happen. Now, if you go to section 169 and 170, it basically tells you who are civil
servants and who not.
It talks about the civil service. So, and assuming, again, not everything that is legal is moral. Assuming that the president had the powers to do this, which I think, again, for argument's sake, which he doesn't clearly from what we've seen, but assuming that he even had the powers, any well-meaning president or any country that knows what it's doing, you would not do that 2 weeks to an election.
Yes, but what if 2 weeks to an election for which the man had 4 years to prepare? Yep. He had tried it out. We had 2 experiments in Ekiti and Osun State. We had seen the problems with the PVCs there. He had time to address those challenges. And then 2 weeks to the election, we have a lopsided distribution all over. Some areas achieving so much more distribution than Lagos.
Well, let me very quickly address that. First of all, I'd wonder then why you didn't remove him in February, why you didn't remove him in January, why you didn't remove him in December. You cannot remove him 2 weeks to an election, even if it was legal. What happens to the election then, especially with the constraints of the Constitution that says you must have an election? You only have those 2 weeks. What is the grand plan exactly? As a lawyer, when you want to make a move, or even in granting an injunction or doing whatever you want to do, you balance the equities. Yes. Okay, what do I gain by removing this guy? What do I lose by? Do I gain a constitutional crisis? Because that's what you're going to have, a constitutional crisis, and we don't know where it's going to end. Or do I just forge ahead At this point where there's 85% distribution of voter cards, there's no perfection. Even in America, we were all aware of the George Bush-Al Gore election that had to be decided by the Supreme Court. There's no perfection anywhere in the world. And 85% is near perfection as you can find. Now, you talk about uneven distribution or collection of PVC cards, and I've wondered why people make this argument. First of all, I think generally you have about 85% across board. But the fact that if in the north, or say if in Borno State, the people are so energized, they come out, come rain, come shine, and insist and collect their PVC cards, and the people in Lagos are more laid back, why would you ascribe that to INEC? The people in Borno believe they've been burned, their killings, their lives are not secure, and they're determined, either for continuity or for change, I don't know, but they're affected. And this is an opportunity for them to exercise their rights, and they go out en masse and collect their, that's got nothing to do with INEC. And the people in another state chilling and saying, well, we don't have problems. We don't have problems here, or we'll do it whenever we want to do it. That's got nothing to do with INEC. That's such a lame argument. And then again, you cannot be throwing things out without evidence. If I may just say this, for all intents and purposes, whatever the argument, people believe that Lagos is an APC state. People believe that, maybe rightly or wrongly. So if INEC was trying to skew, or if indeed Lagos is an APC state, which people believe, then we wouldn't, ours is one of the lowest. That defeats the argument earlier made, the people of Brandon that distribution was intentionally skewed towards a certain part of the country.
Do you think you guys will win in Lagos?
In Lagos?
Yes.
Oh, I believe. Oh, yes, absolutely. I believe. I mean, politics is not anything anybody can determine. I mean, rather, elections are not anything anybody can determine anywhere in the world. But I believe that the party has a formidable structure. The party has done incredibly well in Lagos. Lagosians are very politically aware. They know what is going on. They've seen how their lives have changed over the last few years compared to PDP-controlled states. And I think we will do very well, very, very, very well. Actually, some people say they will be close. I don't think so. You don't think it will be close to call? No, I don't think so. I don't think it appears. It may appear so. Not everything that is or that ought to be is. It's not everything that you see. It's not going to be. It's not going to be close. We have a good candidate by his track record and curriculum vitae, which, when you stack it against all the other candidates that are running for the same position in Lagos, there's absolutely no comparison. They're miles and poles apart, and that says a lot. So for me, I don't think there's going to be a problem in Lagos. So of course, you have to work for everything. You got to work hard, and we're doing that. The name of the party PDP is not something that Lagosians are very particularly happy with.
Have you heard it said that Jimmy Agbaje is a good guy, but in the wrong party? Would it have made a difference, you think, if he was in APC, for instance?
It's a very interesting question that one has to think very carefully about it. If issues, good guys, don't a good governor make? If politics and elections were about issues and people addressed the issues, I'm not sure that being a good guy would have carried a good guy over the hump if he was facing an opponent who had a lot more experience and political, economic antecedents. Because what Lagos needs right now is to sustain its level of development. And the party, well, you may have a point. The party is also very important because the party programs and policies that need to be pushed through. So you may have a point there. So if you're from another party and you don't share the same ideology and philosophy that the party that has put Lagos where it is today shares, then there's a good chance that the potential that you're going to put the state into reverse gear. That question is actually it's up in the air. If it was in this party or that party, let's face what party he's in right now. And that's a no-no for that party.
Join us again after the break. So what is 60 Minutes with Angela all about? It's not an interview. I like to think it's a conversation between two people people making the news, people who are in the news, and those who become the news. And the whole idea is to inform, to educate, or to clarify, as the case may be. It is an art getting people to answer the questions that everyone is thinking in their minds. And that's what we try to do on 60 Minutes with Angela. I ask all the questions that everyone's thinking about and no one wants to voice. All the questions you always wanted to ask, you get those answers on 60 Minutes with Angela. Every week on this station, 60 Minutes with Angela, getting answers to every question you always wanted to ask.
Government wants our city to become a mega modern city. And so, government is providing modern markets for us to carry out our business. Now, this requires money. So, we need to pay our taxes to help government to help us. I pay my taxes. I hope you've paid yours.
Well, welcome back. My concluding moments now with the minority leader of Nigeria's House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila. Let's talk about your presidential candidate now and his vice. We'll start with the vice presidential candidate, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. I read you said that it was a masterstroke, his selection as the VP.
Yeah.
But I thought about it and I thought, well, it's a reminder to many Nigerians of the danger of selecting people who had no prior ambition to be in office, you know, at least not publicly and not expressly stated. It has been in our memory as having wanted to either be governor or be president. If you didn't dream it, what plans can you be bringing on board beyond relying, you know, on self-serving plans, for instance? What can he bring, you know, if he just started thinking of it when he became the vice president? You know, and I'm asking that because there were people in the APC who dreamt this thing, who wanted this thing, who had the ambition to do these
Absolutely,
things.
yes, absolutely. But, you know, you've used the word dream 2-3 times, you know, now. There's a difference for me, there's a difference between, anybody can dream. There's a difference between dream and having a vision. You don't have to be a politician to have a vision of what you want Nigeria to be or how you want Nigeria to be. As you sit there, I'm sure you have a vision of how you want Nigeria to be. So for me, he's had a vision. He's always had a vision. He's a smart guy. He's a very intelligent guy. He's a clean guy. And these are all the qualities that you bring to the table. He's proven himself that wherever you put him, like they put him in, he was in the Ministry of Justice as the Attorney General in Lagos, and we saw what he did with the Justice Department, which became a model, the courts and everything, for other states in Nigeria. Now that's a miniature responsibility which he can take to another level in Nigeria. Look, when you say you didn't think about it, he wasn't interested in it, there's a saying that, you know, some people are born great, and some people have greatness thrust upon them. Okay, that's why it's called to serve, as opposed to pursuing service. He was called to serve. And the history is replete, all over the world, of people who were called to serve, who had no plan, no ambition. They did well in the service of their country. Unless you don't know Professor Osinbajo, those who know him are exceedingly excited. He balances the ticket in many ways, whether it's age, ethnic, religion. In several ways, he balances, and the ticket should always be balanced. I'm not sure what balance you have on the other side.
Yes.
I'm not sure.
What about the accusations about his role there? People see him as a stooge. In fact, I've heard it say that he may have signed resignation letters like Pastor Tunde Bakare alleged in 2011, and that once the election is won, if it is won by the APC, Professor Osinbajo will tender his resignation and step down, and Asiwaju will assume the seat of vice president.
Well, I mean, you see, when people come up with that story, it obviously means that Nigerians are being taken for granted and being looked upon as fools. Nigerians are not fools. Nothing like that ever happened. Only those who do not know Professor Osinbajo will advance that very outlandish claim Now, and he has addressed it. So I think once he's addressed it, that should be laid to rest. It's again another of the PDP propaganda, and it's a desperate propaganda. They've said so many things. This is just the latest, and they probably have more outlandish stories. But it's not helping them in any way. You talked about Pastor Bakari. Pastor Bakari. I think from the little I know, the circumstances at the time, if he did have a resignation letter, which is possible, the circumstances at the time were completely different. Pastor Bakari, from what I know, there was a merger of sorts, or an alliance of sorts. One side was supposed to produce the presidential candidate. The other side, which was ACN, was supposed to produce the vice presidential candidate. Pastor Bakari became the vice presidential candidate, but I don't think it was with the approval or knowledge, I don't think, of the other side. And they may have perhaps come to some agreement that it's too late in the day to change it. But since this is not our candidate, we will give you a candidate later. And that's done everywhere in politics. You put I hesitate to use this word because I don't mean to refer to him as a dummy, but it's just a figure of speech. You put a dummy candidate just to fulfill the
and to meet up with the
time for whatever. So I think, and I may be wrong, and I apologize if I'm wrong, but I think that's exactly what happened in that case. And it wasn't resignation for anybody, any one particular person. It wasn't resignation for Ashwadi Bola Tinubu. It wasn't a pre-signed resignation for anybody. It was a pre-signed letter of resignation that when all the requirements have been met, and we've met the time, we will then sit down and decide who the vice presidential candidate is. In this case, a decision was made, a unanimous decision, an agreement was made, accepted by all across board. This is the vice presidential candidate. It wasn't a race to meet time. And so that's the difference.
And with your presidential candidate, General Muhammadu Buhari, while speaking earlier on, you talked about all the things that had been raised up against him. His certificate, he's ill, his age, and you know, he's not keen on women in government, and all these things thrown up. Just make me wonder why your party settled for him. If he had so many burdens to carry, you had younger men, you had performing men in the APC. You've mentioned Governor Fashola as a formidable person who had performed. You had new entrants from the PDP who had also performed as PDP governors, now APC. You know, so why did your party settle for him? The issue of his certificate till tomorrow, people are still saying, when you're coming back from Chatham House, General Buhari, please bring your certificate. You know, it's still up in the air.
All those things you talk about, age, illness, certificate, where are they coming from? They're coming from the opposition. They're not coming from well-meaning Nigerians. Well-meaning Nigerians are fully behind General Buhari because they see through the facade of the PDP. So I can't really sit here and be it's like I'm exchanging PDP. You know, no. If Nigerians are concerned, I'm more than happy to address that. But having said that, the issue of the certificate, I don't know that I've heard it anywhere. I personally believe, based on all this, first of all, the law does not require the protocol. I don't have my certificate, by the way. I don't have my WAS certificate.
What does the law say?
I don't have it because I've lost it. I've never produced it. I've always used an affidavit. Now, if anybody believes I don't have my school certificate, let them go to court and prove it. That's what the law says.
You who asserts must prove, or alleges must prove.
You who alleges must prove. I don't, and you can go back and check. I have never produced my West African school certificate because I don't have it. I don't know where it is. I've always sworn to an affidavit, which is what General Buhari did. People have come out who were his classmates.
Yes.
People have, not just to say that they took the exams together, several, not one or two, and people respected Nigerians too, for that matter. People have come out and say, even military men, and say, oh, guess what? Yes, our certificates are deposited with the military council or whatever it's called. So that's what it was. Now, I make bold to say, or let me say, I hazard a guess, that based on what we've seen now with the Ekiti tape, gate, even before that, I guessed that the military actually removed the certificate from his file.
And that's why no one ever found it?
Yes, that is my belief. And I may be wrong, but circumstances make me believe that. First of all, the military brought itself into politics, making a calling a press conference and addressing the fact that this certificate is not with them. And then after that, we saw the Ekiti, what happened with the military in the Ekiti tape.
Yes.
So I personally believe that the military took out General Buhari's certificate from its file. Because even in the file, there were things there that kind of lend credence to that belief that I have. There were statements, there were whatever. So it's either the military were negligent at that time. And the military that we had at that time was a strong, respected military. They must have followed through.
Yes.
If they had a statement from the school and all of that, they must have followed through. Where's the certificate? That's number one. So I personally believe that there's something funny and fishy. And that's why it's the same PDP that is calling for it, because they know that the certificate has disappeared. They know he can't get it. And if he can get it at all, then he has met the requirement of the Constitution. He does not have to pander to their own...
Educated
up to. You don't even have to have taken it.
You don't have to have passed the exam.
You don't have to. It says up to. Let me tell you this. I could have studied from Form 1 to Form 5. And when it came time to take my WASC exam,
yes,
I can decide, you know what? I don't want to take WASC exam anymore. I want to go and study music.
Yeah.
You've met that constitutional requirement of up to. I have studied up to.
Because you were in Form 5
yes,
or Form 6
I've
or
studied
whatever.
up to.
Yes.
But that's not even the case with him. I believe he did his exam, and that's how he got into military school. And how did he get his diploma in America?
Yes.
If there's no foundation, did the Americans too not ask for those qualifications?
Regarding his illness, I mean, after his appearance in Chatham House, the APC and himself, you guys went a little bit quiet. There were speculations there that possibly the 6-week extension was taking its toll on your finances. But then it was also thrown up that he possibly was in hospital in England.
Well, let them bring evidence possibly. You can't just be throwing up stuff. You know what? It's possible he was in hospital, but yet you saw him in Chatham House. It's possible he was in hospital, now he's back. What next? This fear-mongering, trying to play on sentiments and all of that. It's not. I read something in the paper, something somewhere on the internet, and some guy said, when they said he's ill, he's going to die, and some guy said, tweeted that, look, General Muhammad Buhari he had made us. General Buhari had said something on his Twitter page that I'm alive and well. He said, look, if you drop dead a day before the election, I will still vote for you. I will vote for a dead man, in other words.
So it didn't matter.
It didn't matter. It doesn't matter to Nigerians. They will vote for them. Now, what is it? You said, why did the party, that's the crux of your question. Look, all the ills of this country, we talk about health, we talk about education, we talk about transportation, we talk about power, we talk about security, we talk about everything you want to talk about, every facet of our life. The problems we have, you can trace it to one thing, and one thing alone: corruption. That is the root cause of all those things I've mentioned. The money that's supposed to go to health, go to education, go to security, go to power, is diverted. Now, if you have one man who has been proven to be squeaky clean, despite whatever PDP might want you to believe, to be squeaky clean, and can clean up that, if he's a one-trick pony, if that is the one thing on his agenda, if he can take care of that corruption issue, which is, for me, is the biggest problem in this country, everything else will be taken care of, will be added onto it. That's the way I believe. And God in his infinite wisdom, he does one. He takes like they say, he takes the foolish things, the most unlikely person, to confound the wise. And that's what he's done with General Buhari. He takes the most unlikely person to show that he's God from amongst you. After all your soft brains, say, okay, enough is enough. And you bring this one person out.
But after
and that's what he has done with General Buhari.
But after that documentary, Mr. Gbajabiamila, people are saying, if General Buhari is serious about fighting corruption, he should start from the APC with the alleged revelations about Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. On that documentary, people can't reconcile the general in the same party with Tinubu.
No. I totally disagree with that. First of all, the general is not the president. He doesn't have powers to do anything right now. So stop speculating. Let's wait till he gets there. You've said it here yourself. There are allegations, wild allegations. Why hasn't this president done that? That alone, it's just common sense. If you're saying General Buhari should start with that, and this one is saying that he's a sitting president, and is alleging that Tinubu did this. Well, oh, sorry, I forgot. He wants to fight it with technology. Sorry about that. He wants to fight it with technology. So he needs to find technology, which I guess is AIT in this case, to fight the corruption of, so-called corruption of Tinubu. And that's a man who wants to fight corruption with technology, but does not want to fight rigging with technology, which is a form of corruption itself.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gbajabiamila. I always enjoy our conversations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. And good luck in the election.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for this week. Don't forget to like 60 Minutes with Angela on Facebook. Alternatively, follow me on Twitter, Angela at 60 Minutes. I'm Angela Ajitumobi. Thank you for watching.